In 1988, Aloha Flight 243 blew its roof mid-flight, but the pilots were still able to successfully land the aircraft with all passengers surviving except for flight attendant Clarabelle Lansing, who was sucked out and whose body was never found. In 1986, a Russian airline pilot was challenged by his co-pilot to land the plane without vision. He took this challenge seriously and pulled down the curtains over the windows, and then the plane missed the runway, got crashed and killed 70 out of 94 passengers. The pilots survived. Meet the honey ant, nature's living pantry. Its name comes from its belly, which swells up like a little jar of honey. These unique ants have one job: stockpiling food for the whole colony. They gulp down meals delivered by worker ants and store nutrients as liquids, water, or fats. You'll find them thriving in some of the hottest, driest places on Earth, where food and water are often in short supply for months at a time. In 1928, at age 16, Elizabeth Betty Robinson Schwartz became the first woman ever awarded an Olympic gold medal for track and field. A few years later, in 1931, Schwartz was in a plane crash mistakenly identified as dead. She was placed in the trunk of a car and driven to the morgue, where it was discovered that she was still alive but in a coma. It took her years to walk normally again, but she returned to track and field and was part of the U.S. relay team at the 1936 Summer Olympics, where her team won gold. Triboulet, a notorious jester for Louis XII and Francis, I once slapped the king on the butt, which greatly angered him, but then was given a chance to be forgiven if he could think of something more clever. He said, "I'm so sorry. I mistook you for the queen." When he was sentenced to death for making fun of people, he was allowed to choose how he would die. So he chose to die of old age. The speechless king let him go. Victoria Woodhull was born into poverty in an abusive household and was married to an alcoholic womanizer at 15. After she divorced him, Woodhull went on to own a newspaper, become the first woman to own a Wall Street stock brokerage, and then in 1872, she became the first woman to run for President of the United States, choosing Frederick Douglass as her running mate. A local fisherman in Costa Rica nursed a crocodile back to health after it had been shot in the head and released the reptile back to its home. The next day, the man discovered Pocho had followed him home and was sleeping on the man's porch. For 20 years, Pocho became part of the man's family. In 1972, Stefano Mariottini was snorkeling off the coast of Monasteres near Riese and noticed a human hand sticking out of the sand. Thinking it was a corpse, he called the police. It was actually two statues of warriors from Riese, ancient Greek bronze statues of the 5th century BC. California Governor Leland Stanford Sr. lost his only child to typhoid. He and his wife devoted their fortune to build a university as a memorial in his name, saying the children of California shall be our children. They named it Leland Stanford Junior University, now called Stanford University. Cecilia Pangaposhkin's 1925 thesis that the sun was composed mostly of hydrogen and helium was rejected by a professor who called it impossible. Years later, the man who rejected it realized she was in fact right, but he was credited with the discovery for decades. A prominent astronomer called her discovery the most brilliant PhD thesis ever written in astronomy. This woman's husband and son died in a car crash while going home after a match. She received an invitation for the next match and came to see the players and staff wearing t-shirts with their photo on it and stood for a few moments in silence for them. In 2015, an Australian woman put a bet on a horse at 100 to 1 and won $825. She then took a selfie with the winning bet slip, posted it to Facebook. Somebody saw it and put the barcode into an automated betting machine and stole her winnings.